Welcome everyone, those in the Zoom meeting and those on Facebook Live. So today we're going to have Hudson from Vision of the Blind in Mombasa, Kenya. And he's going to talk about inclusion of people living with disabilities. So Hudson and Vision is the CEO of Vision of the Blind, and Vision of the Blind is one of our partnering NGOs. And we've been with them now for over a year, and they're doing a lot of good work both in Mombasa County and Kenya at large. Matters inclusion of people and their empowerment for the PWDs. And Hudson wears many caps, but above all, he is the Executive Director of Vision of the Blind. And
so, as you've rightfully introduced me, I am the CEO of Vision of the Blind, and I happen to be visually challenged, but I'm proud of my disability. I view that as my ability. And so, without further ado, I would want to get straight to our today's talk about disability inclusion or good. Okay, so as we start,
we can put it into presentation mode so that we see only the slides you are presenting.
Are you seeing the slide right now? The first slide?
Yes.
Oh, good. So first and foremost, I just wanted to give you an overview of some of the terminologies that we may be using repeatedly throughout my presentation, so that we are together as par. So those terminologies are there. I think you can see for yourself: disability, mainstreaming, and so on and so forth. Next. So we start with the definition of the term disability. As much as all of us, maybe in our own way, there's the way we understand disability. But then there's that definition by the United Nations, UNCRPD, United Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disability. The concept of disability is viewed with environmental challenges. So it is an evolving concept, as a matter of fact, and it goes with the interaction between a person and the environment. So the environment is the one which will disable somebody alongside in accordance to the nature of impairment of that person. So for example, as a person with visual impairment, the environment might make me more disabled if it is not friendly to me. So when I use my white cane and the pathways, there are no pathways, so that I'm able to understand that when I'm moving, this is the end of the road. This is the middle of the road. So in the absence of that, in that setup, it makes me more disabled. So that is the concept of disability. So then there is impairment. Then disability mainstreaming. Disability mainstreaming is all about the process of bringing on board disability. The process of disability inclusion, making sure that we include disability in our organizations. That's the basic, the strategies that we put in place to make sure that disability is recognized within our organization. That is all about disability mainstreaming. And then disability etiquette is all about how we interact with the disability, ranging from communication with persons with disabilities. How we talk about persons with disabilities, that entails all about the subject of disability etiquette. So next slide. Then impairment. Oftenly, most of the time, people confuse disability with impairment. As I've already pointed out in the previous slide, disability touches on environment, the environment that one resides in. Then impairment is the actual loss of function of one's body organ. So, like in my case, being a person with visual impairment, then it means organs that relate, that makes me able to see, are not functioning. So that is my impairment, my visual impairment. My impairment is visual. Then the categories of impairment. The categories of impairment, there are quite a lot, quite several. We do have physical impairment, visual, hearing, and then the other categories like cerebral palsy, hydrocephalus, spina bifida, and the list goes on. It's a long list. And then next. Okay. Who is Vision of the Blind? Vision of the Blind is an advocacy and developmental organization of persons with disabilities. We are an NGO of persons with disabilities. And so who are these persons with disabilities? Of course, it relates to the earlier on this description of disability or definition of disability. So persons with disabilities are those with mental, intellectual, or sensory impairments. Sensory impairments are like examples of sensory impairments are those disabilities that, or impairments that are not visible, they are invisible. Like, for example, myself, right now that I'm seated here, you will not know that I'm a person with I'm a person with disability, not unless I tell you when I'm seated. If I'm in motion, you'll be able to know that I'm a person with disability. But if I'm seated somewhere, or a person with hearing impairment, if by just seeing that person, you'll not be able to know that it's a person with disability. So that's some of the sensory impairments. So persons with disabilities are actually our target group as a persons, as an organization of persons with disabilities. Next. Now, what motivated the formation of our organization? Actually, we have listed quite a lot of things that the prevailing circumstances before we formed our organization. Of course, some of these issues might be there up to this moment, but I think as we continue with this presentation, we realize that at least we have managed to effect some changes. But actually, some of the things that made us form this organization, we have enlisted them there. So, for example, we realized that persons with disabilities were facing bad economic times. And you know, as a person with disability, you are you face double discrimination. You face double challenges. The poverty that a person who is not disabled faces, a person with disabilities faces even more of the same because of and those environmental factors, of which some of them are already listed here. So you see that you realize that we are not able to, as persons with disabilities, we are not able even to access gainful employment, business opportunities. There were insufficient, inadequate laws and policies to address our plight. There are many challenges as we have listed them here. So those are some of the things that motivated the formation of our organization, There are even data gaps, because you know, for any effective program implementation, you need to have the data in place, any research findings that will inform the programming. But then when we were forming the organization, we realized that there wasn't any reliable data. So we thought it wise to come to form the organization so that we are able to try to come up with some proposed mitigation and so that they are able to face up to those situations. Next. Okay. Now about the vision of the blind, the way how we have found ourselves where we are right now. So we first of all started as a group, just a self-help group. And when we started that group, it was meant to target persons with visual impairment. And so as time went by, there was an appetite for us to also reach out to other categories of impairment. And this was actually as a result of the work that we are doing on the ground. Actually, for purposes of your information, our group, when we started it, most of us were musicians from various groups, entertainers, talent. Our talent was basically music. So we used music to fundraise, we used music to create awareness to the community. So through this self-help group of young, talented musicians with disabilities, we really attracted even the other categories of impairment. So going by that, we have to upgrade to a community-based organization to at least increase our scope of operation. But then that wasn't enough. Persons with disabilities from within the neighborhood, that is the neighboring counties and neighboring constituencies with the coast region, developed an interest in our activities. So going by that, we then decided to even upgrade it further to a non-governmental organization. So that is why we are an NGO as we speak right now. Next. Good. What strategies were we employing to be able to address some of the to be able to address the situation? So, like in the first place, we were utilizing our talents. So most of our members were musicians. So we tried our level best to make use of our talents to reach out to the general population, to inform them about, to sensitize them about the potential of persons with the disabilities. So through those, through the talents, we're able to also network with local partners, especially in the hotel industry, because Mombasa is dominated by the hotel industry, the hotel sector. So we managed to network with the hotel sector, whereby through the hotel industry, we were able to market our talents. And the talents were ranging from music, then to even handcrafts. We used to engage persons with disabilities who are able to make handcrafts and sell the same to these hotels, so that they can also make ends meet. And also we used to, most of the time, as the organization was growing, those of us who are able to get any form of employment, we used to use them as role models to go and talk to persons with disabilities in learning institutions, to inform them not to lose hope in life, and that there is no acquiring a disability was not the end of life. So through our beneficiaries, we were able to make a lot of change, a lot of impact. Like right now, the few that are able to access the business opportunities through Impact Direct, we are also using them as role models, so that when we do our proposals, when we reach out to even donors, we tell them that we have people who have excelled in business. We have people who are doing such and such a business. So through that, we're able to change the equation. Next. Good. So we were also able to utilize whatever resources that we are coming across. And then just a second. Yes, our achievements, sorry. So I'm just rushing very fast so that can be able to respond to issues. So the impact of our organization is vivid. So as you can read for yourselves, we have been able to support over about 352 persons with disabilities. Of course, in matters access to soft skills training, capacity building in business management. We have been able to also ensure that there is job placement. Persons with disabilities have been absorbed in the private sector, and also they have been able to acquire wage employment, courtesy of our advocacy in inclusive employment. Okay, also courtesy of the support that we've received from Impact Direct, we've been able also to acquire a business stock for over 42 persons with disabilities. And then also move to the next slide. Good. We have also been able to partner with fellow organizations of persons with disabilities, of which through these partnerships, we've been able to come up with a couple of policies, like for example, a policy on inclusive employment, disability and employment. There is a training guide on disability inclusion that we have been able to come up with. We have also been able to form new groups of persons with disabilities. And then we have to address the issue of data gaps. Through these groups, through the groups that through our partnerships, we've been able to commission some desk research, whereby we've been able to assess the compliance of the Kenyan government in matters implementation of UNCRPD Article 27, that is on work and employment, Article 28, adequate standard of living. So through these research findings, of which we have been able to share with the Kenya government, so far they're already developing, reviewing their policy on social protection, thanks to the research findings that we've been able to share with the Kenya government. Also, through the research findings, the various county governments are now making use of the research findings that as persons with organizations or persons with disabilities, we are able to come up with. Then, of course, through our other activities, program activities, we also enhanced participation, political participation of persons with disabilities. We have got many persons with disabilities right now who were able to vie for various political positions, and some of them were able to secure those positions. Then others have also been able to ascend to special seats nominations, thanks to our awareness creation on the disability rights. Next. Okay, we have a sampled photos to just confirm some of the work that we've been doing and the beneficiaries, the impact of our work. So like currently, I think you can see for yourselves, we are training. Those are a few beneficiaries being trained in mobility and orientation. Then there is one lady there by the name Gladys receiving a white cane from the CEO himself, that is myself, handing over a white cane. We've done so with very, very many other persons with disabilities, over 150. But these are just sample photos. Next. Then we have Stella Wangila there. This is a beneficiary from support received from Impact Direct. Stella Wangila, this is a lady who has got a degree in mass communication, but she is jobless. She has not been able to secure any job. She's cerebral palsy. That's the disability, cerebral palsy. But you can see we were able to secure a business point for her. And then thanks to Impact Direct, we were able to secure some business stock for her to start a food mongering business. Then there is Jane Mugai. She's deaf. Before we donated to her, the business stock, you can see the first photo. That is the business was ailing, was really ailing. But then thanks to the support from Impact Direct, now the second photo you can see, she is doing good now. Next. Now there is another deaf lady comparing the business before she received the support from our organization. Of course, thanks to Impact Direct, that is a deaf lady also. Now, of course, the other photo is showing the support that she has received. Then there is that visually impaired guy by the name Dafton Meshigadi operating a water kiosk. That is also the kind of impact that we have made to him and the community. Because, you know, this is an area that has got serious water shortages. So with this kind of support, it does not just impact his family, but it is also impacting the community by enhancing access to clean piped water. Okay? This is a visually impaired lady, which secured support from us. First of all, we engaged Red Cross. Wherever she's doing business, is told that she got this toll courtesy of our engagement with Red Cross. So Red Cross donated that kiosk, that business location, and then through Impact Direct, we were able to donate the business stock to her. She is visually impaired. Then there is this shoemonger by the name Gideon Lugwe. She is a shoemaker. So you can see before we donated to him the paraphernalia for her business, that is the way that's the business he was doing, and it was just literally collapsing. But after our support, you can see. So Gideon right now is able to even take his kids to school. So thanks to this support. And of course, the shoe repair that he is doing is supporting even also the community as much as he's earning his living. But then you can realize that people, there was no, this kind of business was not there. It was not within that locality. So people are really happy of that business. Next. Now you can see a deaf chef. This is a lady who is deaf, and thanks to our advocacy on inclusive employment. So there are also other institutions that have been able to bring on board persons with disabilities. But we saw this as an outstanding case because this is a managerial position that is being held by a person with hearing impairment. So it shows that, one, our advocacy has worked well for us. Then two, we are able as persons with disabilities to perform those tasks that nobody could have imagined. Next. Now, we sampled some of the quotes of well-renowned persons with disabilities globally, just for us to reflect on those thoughts, to be able to understand why we need to focus on bringing on board persons with disabilities. Some of these quotes might sound to be maybe a little bit not really friendly, but actually, as a sector, as persons with disabilities, we view them as just quite in order. For example, just look at the third quote. The global disability inclusion strategies. You know, he has said that the only disability is when you cannot see the human potential. So it's just emphasizing on the importance of recognizing and appreciating disability. So there are several quotes there just for you to try to conceptualize with them. Next. Now, these are some of the things that we think are crucial questions that we need to think about as within our organizations, as the point persons of our organizations. Now, for example, do you have a person with a disability or an employee with a disability within your organizations, within your respective organizations? Have you been able to employ persons with disabilities? Okay, if not, then even as you do your activities, have we ever interacted with persons with disabilities? Then it is important that for us to understand disability is not a choice. It's something that somebody can, or you can even acquire disability at any given moment, either through accident, through conflict, through sickness or illness. So it is just important that we make sure that we be proactive. What have you done within your respective organizations with a view to recognize the plight of persons with disabilities? And again, what do you know about interactions with persons with disabilities and their potential? So these are some of the hard questions that we need to get to ask ourselves to be able to start to do something about disability mainstreaming. Next. Now, as organizations and impact direct, I know in one way or another, most of your organizations, your core mandate is to change the lives of your beneficiaries within your localities. And so as you change the lives of those people within your localities, it is good that you identify persons with disabilities as to be among your beneficiaries. And so how do you go about that? It has to be institutionalized by way of coming up with disability mainstreaming policies. I've already defined disability mainstreaming earlier on. So you have to come up with those policies. So how do you go about it? We have a link that we have displayed there. So you can join that link. When you subscribe to that link, there is a disability mainstreaming guide that I think if you are able to subscribe to that guide, you will be able to understand more about disability mainstreaming. And then you are able to also engage a disability mainstreaming expert who will be able to assist you in conducting a disability usability and accessibility audit. That is to be able to gauge the gaps, the disability inclusion gaps within your organizations, so that once you understand your gaps, is then when you can be able to do and to know what you are able to, what you are supposed to do. So now, for instance, when you invite a disability mainstreaming officer to conduct these gaps, you'll definitely realize that we have physical barriers which range from maybe the offices might not be disability friendly, then they may not be accessible to persons with disabilities. Your program activities may not be accessible to persons with disabilities, or even within your offices, your information may not be accessible to persons with disabilities. So for instance, as a person with visual impairment, I would prefer information in Braille. So you may realize that when you conduct your activities, you do not have information in Braille. So it then means that you have already excluded beneficiaries who are visually challenged. Large print is also very important for those who have got low vision, like persons with albinism and even others who've got low vision. They require large print. And then there are those with hearing impairment. They may require sign language for them to be able to access information. And then through that disability mainstreaming expert, they'll be able to also take you through the basics of understanding disability. Because disability is a concept which is also very, very wide. There are quite a lot of things that we need to comprehend in terms of understanding disability. For instance, there is that aspect of disability etiquette. Disability etiquette, as defined earlier on, is basically how you communicate with persons with disabilities, and also how you talk about persons, how you talk about disability. So, for example, talking about disability, there are those terminologies that are outdated. You cannot refer to persons with the physical impairment as crippled. Those with intellectual disabilities are mentally retarded. You cannot use such terminologies. For instance, you cannot refer to persons with disabilities as disabled persons. So those are some of the basics that a person, an expert in disability mainstreaming will be able to take you through. So for the interest of time, I may not delve deeper into that, but if need be, I'll able to address some of those subjects in depth. Next. So I believe that all organizations are playing a role at grassroots level and that role is mainly geared towards improving lives of the local communities within our areas of jurisdiction. So this then calls for us, there is something that we need to do in terms of recognizing and appreciating persons with disabilities. So I may end this presentation by asking you, what have you done in terms of recognizing and appreciating the plight of persons with disabilities? So moving forward, I know, as I've already pointed out earlier on, the best way to go about it is all about disability mainstreaming. If we mainstream disability within our organizations, then that will have set the pace for disability inclusion. So the mainstream process, of course, will ensure that there is that physical access, there is that aspect of access to information, there is that access to the rights of persons with disabilities. So disability mainstreaming is the way to go. And so there is this quote that we cited there by Oliver Sacks. Of course, you can read it for yourself. And he said that, I wish for a world that views disability, be it mental or physical, not as a hindrance, but as unique attributes that can be seen as powerful assets if given the right opportunities. So it's all about recognizing our disabilities as powerful attributes. And if we go that direction, I'm sure the level of exclusion will really reduce. Next. Thank you very much. I think you can see for yourself, we have a website, which is currently being upgraded. but I think you can get more information about us. You can also follow us through the various social platforms as we have indicated there. So I think I've done my part. The rest is with you, and I welcome you to pose any questions. I may not have been able to address most of the issues because just for the interest of time. So Martha, I hand it over back to you so that we can invite others to pose their questions or raise their concerns. Thank you so much.